and it feels like that moment lasts a half an hour. There's no way it did, but it feels like forever because I'm standing there like my hands are shaking talking about it right now. Like it was very upsetting.
There's a
Um,
force in all of us that science knows nothing about, the force of fear.
Welcome everyone to Induced Fear. I'm your host Oscar, and with me I have Jordan Heath from Campfire, Tales of the Strange and Unsettling. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I said it right, huh?
Yeah, you did. No redundancy in that title.
Yeah. uh, so you wanted to come on here to share some paranormal experiences that you've had. I know
Yeah,
we've talked about some before,
yeah,
like just back and forth.
yeah.
So it'll be great.
Yeah. It's a recent thing for me, honestly. Um, any like fan of our show would know that up until November of last year, pretty much. I think the beginning of November of last year, I was one of those people that I'd never experienced anything, and I was constantly on the show talking about how I wish I could have an experience. I wish I could have some kind of confirmation for any of this. And since November of last year, as of last night, I've experienced the trifecta. I've had a paranormal experience. I've had what felt to me at the time like a cryptid sighting. I honestly don't know what it is, but and last night I saw and filmed and posted this morning a UFO sighting. So I've
Yeah,
now had all three in a few months, which is pretty wild.
yeah, you hit
Um,
the paranormal trifecta.
yeah,
Big three.
exactly. The big three.
Yeah. So which one would be the first that you would want to talk about? I would assume it'd probably be the paranormal, like
Yeah,
this ghostly
sure.
aspects of it. First.
Yeah, that was my first experience ever. So we were um we were recording that night for the show. We were recording the story of the Ackley family haunting. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but it took place in upstate New York, and there's a family who who had a lot of sort of the basic. If you look at it on the surface level, it's a lot of the basic poltergeist type experiences. But what's really interesting about that story is the relationship between the family and whatever was haunting their house. Um, it became a very friendly
Mm.
relationship, to the point where there's one scene from the story where the the matriarch of the family is repainting their den. Right, she's up on a ladder painting the den, and she looks back over her shoulder and she sees a full body apparition sitting in like a leather armchair across the room, and she just says what do you think of the new paint color? Do you think it works? And just it's very personable, friendly encounters like
Yeah.
that. Um, but it got so friendly that when they moved out of their family home, they the quote was, "We only hope that they'll come with us." Like they were hoping that the spirits would come with them to their new home.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've always kind of thought of ever since we covered that, I've thought of that as that's the blueprint for how to deal with a haunting. I
Yeah.
like I'm a person who thinks that the paranormal, just like in life, you kind of get what you give. The energy that you put out is what you're going to receive, right?
Yeah.
And I think they just handled it beautifully. And they had, overwhelmingly positive experiences. One of the only scary parts of it, the teenage daughter, is every morning she's a half hour before her alarm clock is supposed to go off, her bed would start shaking, her a blanket would get ripped off the bed, and was just getting really frustrated. You know how annoying it is when you wake up a half hour before your alarm's going off. You're
Yeah.
like, it's not even worth going back to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So she tells her mom about it, and her mom is like, just ask them to stop. Like, let them know that like you're on summer vacation now and you don't have to get up this early anymore. Like, and she did, and they stopped. It just stopped
Yeah,
happening.
that's that
Yeah.
sounds like the best way to deal with a haunting instead of, like, screaming and, like,
Yeah.
shouting,
Yeah.
like or
So
shouting demon and the ghost
yeah.
is like, "I'm just a person. I'm just a
Yeah.
person."
Exactly. Like, I'm a spirit who's gone through so much to be able to communicate with you, and now, like, you finally can tell that I'm here, and you just run off screaming, and,
Yeah,
like, yeah, how frustrating would
yeah.
that be? Um, but yeah, after we covered that, I I went into my bedroom, and I was telling my wife about the story, and, I was standing between the door to our ensuite bathroom and the bed, and she was laying on the bed, and I was talking to her, and all of a sudden I hear the sound of like a rubber sole of a shoe sliding across the tile floor of the bathroom.
Hmm,
And I turn around and kind of get out of my wife's way so that she can see too. And we both stand there, or we're both sitting there and watching the bathroom door just slowly close, and it's pushing this slipper, this like thick rubber soled slipper that's against the door. It's pushing it across the floor, and it continues until the shoe hits the threshold of the doorway, which is kind of raised. And the door continues, and then the door continues pushing and closes and flips the shoe up over the threshold. And we have a lot of cats. My wife is a vet tech, so we have more cats than a normal person. So my first thought obviously was like, there's probably a cat in there.
yeah,
Like, you know. And so I walk up to the door, and when I'm about to open the door, I no longer think that it's a cat. So as I'm about to open the door, I am completely convinced, 100% convinced that when I open that door, a person's going to be standing in the bathroom. I'm just like in that moment, I'm 100% sure that there's a person on the other side of the door. And then I open the door and the bathroom is empty. No cats, no people. It just, and I think that's what got me, was being so sure. Like my intuition told me that there was a person, like
yeah.
100% without a doubt, and being so wrong was like it was an unsettling feeling for
That's
sure.
the I think those are, like, the best well, I guess not necessarily the best moment, but, like, the best in the sense of, like, "Oh, I am wrong about this. It definitely was something that I can't explain."
Yeah, yeah. That's what convinced me right away. Like, and we're like, this was in the winter. No open windows, no, our house is 10 years old. It's not like an old drafty house. It's not like poorly hung door. You know what I mean? It like,
Mhm.
there's nothing that made sense about what happened. And like the fact that it was so slow and steady, the door shutting,
Yeah.
and it just flipped that shoe up, like it was enough force to continue and like flip the shoe up over the threshold. It just, man, it,
Yeah,
so
well, I
that was my
mean,
first.
you can't I mean, you can try to explain it off as wind,
Sure.
but the fact is that there was force enough to push this shoe to make it, like, skip across,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't like move a little bit, stop, move a little
Mhm.
bit, stop. It was like this door just consistently, slowly swinging forward, sliding the slipper across the floor, and then popping it up over the threshold to latch shut. It was, yeah.
And was it an internal feeling, like a switch that you at first you thought it was a cat, and then as you got up to the door, was it just like this switch inside of you that was just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, not a cat, it's a person."
Yeah. Yeah, the closer my hand got to that doorknob, the more certain I was that there was a person on the other side of that door. Like, it just, yeah. By the time I turned
Person,
it,
just not
I was,
physical.
yeah. I guess so. I I don't know. By the time I turned that doorknob, I would have bet my life savings that there was a person on the other side of that door.
Yeah.
And I was so wrong. So
It's
wrong.
it's
Yeah.
pretty wild. It's so simple, but like a
Yeah.
great experience nonetheless.
See, that's the thing. I always sort of feel silly telling people about it, but it it was sort of like it was like life altering for me a little bit because not having any experiences for 34 years, you know, and then to suddenly like I don't know, to just be so certain and be wrong showed me that I had no idea about what was happening,
Yeah,
like right in front of me, you know? And that
yeah,
was that confirmation that, you know, that something exists beyond the physical plane that I'd been asking for years.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just in a moment where you hadn't asked for it
Yeah.
at all, just
Yep.
happened.
Yeah. And I thought it was like, you know, everyone told me because like I've mentioned several times, I was always asking I was always talking about how I wished I could have an experience, and so many people told me that spending all, like as much time as I do reading, writing, researching, talking about all this stuff was going to open doors to it.
Yeah,
It was going to make me more open to having experiences or I don't know, more sensitive to it. And
yeah,
I always kind of like I always thought that like academically that made sense, you know, but it didn't really sink in until it really started happening.
yeah. That's what I had. We just recently had Tommy on from the Let's Get Freaky podcast, and he had a similar thing of like he had been talking about shadow figures
Mm,
for quite a while, to the point where he started having shadow person experiences, and he says, "I've never had them before, so it was really weird to
yeah.
just wake up and see a shadow figure."
Yeah, I can imagine it would be.
Yeah, he said maybe it does happen. Maybe talking about it does bring it in.
Yeah. I'm in my experience, I can say honestly, I think that's the case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good. It wasn't like uber crazy. You weren't like zhuzhing it up.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
like it just slammed and then opened and then slammed again. No,
Yeah.
it's just a nice little, definitely with force pushing the door.
Yeah. It was just a significant enough experience to convince me.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And I felt like that's kind of what it was. It was just like we're just letting you know we're here,
yeah.
you know? Yeah.
And you haven't had anything else happen since that moment, like,
I mean, not in that vein.
yeah.
No. No.
But if you
Nothing else.
did, you would take in that same from the story, you would take in that same mentality of just like, hey, if you're gonna close doors,
Yeah, I
shut
think
off the
so.
light before you close the door.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Or there's a line from there was someone who was having damn it. I can't remember the case that it was, but there's a case where the a guy is carrying in like he and his wife are carrying in groceries from the car and his kids run out and they're like, "Oh, they had like their kids had a Bigfoot experience like or something was like banging all over the outside of the house
Uh-huh.
while the kids were home alone." And when the parents get home, they run out and they tell their dad about it and he like yells out into the backyard. He's like, "Well, you assholes could at least come and help us carry in the groceries."
That's the best
Yeah.
way to go about it. Don't show any fear.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now, I don't know if you want to move into the cryptid experience or what you believe is a cryptid experience or the
Sure.
UFO one recently.
Yeah, I can do that. So, well, before I do that, in the more paranormal vein, also, back at the end of November, um, so the only other thing that I would put in the category of paranormal, um, back at the end of November, my dad died of cancer, and I'm not a person who remembers their dreams almost ever. I'm like I'll have that like brief sort of in between sleep and awake period where I do remember the dream, and that just like by the time I sit up, it's gone,
Yeah.
you know? Um, but ever since my dad passed, at least 4 nights a week, I've had dreams where I'm just sitting having conversations with him. And I mean, 4 nights a week, like regularly. Um, and they're like long, detailed conversations. They're not memories. Like in the dreams, I know he's passed, he knows he's passed, and we're just talking. And yeah, that's been consistent since the beginning of December. And
Wow. And you say you both know, like, it's not like a memory or
no,
anything like that. It's like, yeah, as if it's happening right then and there
yeah,
now, in the now.
yep, absolutely.
Wow.
And it depending on what we talk about, he looks a little different in the
Mm.
dreams. Sometimes he looks younger. Sometimes he looks like he did when he was sick because, he passed of lung cancer. So in the last 2 years, he lost like 100 pounds. And like he looked very different at the end of his life than he did for most of his life. So sometimes he looks like he did at the end. Sometimes he looks more healthy and a bit younger. But it seems to depend on what we're talking about in the dream. But I personally believe that I think it's him. I think it's more than just a dream, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially when people do have experiences like that, where like I've had somebody tell me an instant where their dad had passed, and that same night, his father visited him and said, "Hey, this is what happened," almost like to explain it to him before
Wow.
anybody else could.
Yeah.
So I know people have had experiences like that, and it's just a way for like a loved one just to come and talk with you more and
Yeah.
just visit more.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even begin to explain how thankful I am to have that experience, to have had that experience. I feel
Yeah,
like I've had like 3 more months with him that I wouldn't have had, you
yeah,
know? I honestly, and I feel kind of bad about it, but I talk to him more now than I did the last year he was alive, you know? He was sick, he was in and out, sometimes he wasn't well enough to talk, or life happens and you get busy and you can't get over there as often as you'd like.
yeah,
And we definitely weren't having hours long conversations 4 nights a week, when he was still alive, even when before he got sick. So
yeah. And
it's been,
now it's something you can actually. I mean, you can tell they're not dreams as well, just because you can retain that.
yeah,
Like you remember those things.
yeah. See, that's also a big part of it. A big part of why I think it's more than just a dream because like I said, I don't remember my dreams. I never have. When I was a kid, I didn't. When you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So to suddenly have, and I remember every bit of it, like every bit of it. It's crazy. So
yeah. I think.
that's been awesome.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that's a beautiful and awesome. Like those are beautiful and awesome experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super thankful for them. So moving on to something scarier, because this one like legitimately scared me. Um, it was early December, about a week after I lost my dad, and I was not in a good place emotionally. Like the kind that just like, every once in a while every once in a while you'd think you're fine and
Yeah.
like and then it just kind of bubbles up, like the grief just bubbles up. And
Or when people are like asking the same questions they keep asking, and
yes.
you're like, "Listen, I'm still in the same spot.
Yeah.
Like nothing has changed right now. Don't ask me that question."
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand
Um
that.
yeah. Um So it was probably 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was fielding some of those questions, like you were talking about. I was at that point, I was getting like, and it's, not to be ungrateful because I'm like, I'm so thankful for like the outpouring of support that I got when that happened from, friends in the community, friends that I know in person, people I hadn't talked to in a decade were like messaging me like, "I can't believe it. Your dad was amazing," all that.
Yeah,
And that was beautiful. I really do appreciate that. But it is taxing to deal with all that. To like
yeah,
to tell 40 people a day, "It's okay. I'm all right." You know what I mean? Like,
yep,
yeah. So it was about 1 a.m. and I just was over it. And I put my phone down. I leashed up my dog. I have a 100-pound Irish Wolfhound. She's like, at that point, she was like 8 months old and 100 pounds. She's a big dog. And, but she's still a puppy. And this is important for the story. So she, we're like, at that point, we are still really working on her reactivity. So whenever she would see another animal or another person when we were out on a walk, she would run toward them, like, and not aggressively, just like, I want attention from that.
yeah.
You know, and
Play puppy.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Um, the only difference is it's a 100-pound puppy, right?
it's like a
So, and it
horse. It's like a horse
yeah,
running at you.
it is.
Yeah,
And it scares people, right? Like
yeah,
when she takes off toward them, it scares them. So that's her general personality. She's like super friendly, not afraid of anything. I would have to keep her from running toward like, 80-pound German shepherds that like probably wouldn't want her running at them.
yeah,
Um, so we're I leash her up and take her for a walk just to like get some fresh air, right? And get away from all the conversations. And we're out walking for about a half hour and it's like lightly snowing, right? Like just the kind of snow that you can only see underneath the streetlights, right? Like you can't really tell it's snowing
yeah,
except for under the streetlights. Um, and we come to this block where there are no streetlights on the block. The next streetlight is at the next intersection. So we're walking, and I see kind of silhouetted by the streetlight ahead of us. I see what appears to be a dog, a very big dog, like big by the standards of me, who's walking 100-pound dog. This is a huge fucking dog, like
yeah,
big, scary big. And as soon as I notice it, Violet, my dog, she's already noticed it. And she's like, her immediate reaction is to get behind me. Like, she's terrified. She's like behind me. She like sits down behind me, and I can like feel her shaking against me, like peering out between my legs. Um, and I froze. I just like, I stood there and stared at it. And I could, I should have warned you before I started this story, but it's weird. It's very weird. Even by like the standards of the stuff you and I talk about on a regular basis, this is weird. It gets really weird. So, okay, I'm standing there staring at this thing, and I can feel that like I can't see its eyes, right? It's basically a silhouette, but I can feel that it's looking at me. Like I just know that it's looking at me. It's like that it has me in its sights, right? That's what it feels like. Um, and I mean, it feels like that moment lasts a half an hour. There's no way it did, but it feels like forever because I'm standing there like my hands are shaking talking about it right now. Like it was very upsetting. Um, I'm standing there looking at it and I can feel it staring at me. And I in a moment, it's so hard to explain. The it's like the film flipped. One moment it's a dog, and the next moment it's a person standing in the exact same
Like
place.
just in a snap, it was just
Yes, in a snap. Like it's like someone, you know those old like red things that you'd put on your face and you would flip from picture to
yeah, click.
picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like someone did that to reality. Just like flipped it. And it went from a really big dog to a person. Still a silhouette, but obviously a person. And my reaction was nothing. Like I it registered to me that visually it was different,
Mhm.
but it felt exactly the same, right? Like it's so hard to explain. But it I knew that that nothing had really changed. Does that make sense? I knew
Just
that it was the
you knew,
same
like, in
thing.
the feeling was like whatever this being is, it's the same being,
Yes.
but physically it doesn't look the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and I stand there, dog still terrified. I stand there for it, and it's still I can still feel it looking at me, and it moves to the right across from the middle of the road in between two cars that are parked on the side of the road. And the moment that I can't see it anymore, Violet is out in front of me again, like nothing happened.
Hmm.
And like and I just like sat down on the sidewalk. Like I was exhausted. Like I don't cuz you know how they tell like models to not lock their knees when they're going to be
Uh-huh.
standing in one position for a long time cuz it makes you can pass out from it.
Yeah.
Um like I don't know if I was standing there with my knees locked for 5 minutes or what, but I was wiped. As soon as Violet went out in front of me, I just like sat down on the sidewalk and just like I sat there for probably 10 minutes, like catching my breath. Uh, and yeah, I don't I don't know if that was a cryptid. I don't know if it was a shadow person. I don't really know what it was, but I know it was scary as shit. That's all I really
I
know.
guess it would be cryptid if it was like some kind of unknown creature, you know.
Sure.
So, uh, I just find it interesting. Like it was that feeling of of like this tension and fear that both you and the dog felt
Yeah.
at the same time, like was taxing on both like your mind, body, and soul. Like
Yeah.
everything was just tired by the end of that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever like driven home in a snowstorm?
Yeah,
You know how when you like finally get in your driveway and you realize that like you've been holding the steering wheel like with a white knuckle grip for
yeah,
20 minutes and
just
you like kind of have to pry your fingers off the steering
mhm.
wheel? Like that's how my whole body felt after this. Like man, it was and again like I feel like this just like my first experience, it was what was happening inside me that convinced me that what I saw was real and was something anomalous,
Yeah,
right?
it was like a primal like senses kicked in that
Yeah,
moment. Where like you just knew
yeah,
something was staring at you and something wasn't right.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, I can't imagine how I would feel in that moment. Of course, right now, just listening to it, I would have been like, I would have walked up to it,
sure.
something, you know. But
Yeah,
I guarantee in that moment, I would have been like, no, no, I'm gonna hide behind the dog.
yeah,
The dog
right.
won't hide behind me.
I mean, I'd like to think that I don't even feel like I had a choice. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, there were no logical processes going on for me in that moment. I was just kind of like spectating almost.
yeah.
Like, I had no control over what I was doing.
You were
It was
trapped in
like,
that moment.
yes, yeah, and I think that's why it felt like it lasted so long.
Yeah.
there's really no way for me to know how long I actually stood there watching it. I don't it might have been a half an hour, it might have been 45 seconds. I but I know it felt like I'd just run a marathon when it was over, you
Yeah,
know?
well, I mean, especially for something that is instant, everything is unknown
Yeah.
in that moment. Your mind is just trying to process what's going on
Yeah.
in this moment, so
Yeah,
it makes it feel longer.
the whole world feels foreign.
Mhm.
Like you've just like stepped through a portal into another dimension. That's I mean, honestly, that's how it feels. Um,
And I like that you described, your dog as being, like, it's a puppy. She's a
yeah,
puppy, so she has high energy, and you described her as running up to, like, anything and
yeah,
everything, but in that moment, no, it was
yeah,
immediately she was hiding behind you
yeah.
and shaking in fear.
That I think that's part well, I think that definitely contributed to how I was feeling too. Because like when you when you get a dog and like she became my best friend instantly
Mhm.
when I got her. We spend all of our time together. She's asleep on the couch behind me right now. Um,
Oh, yeah, I see her.
yeah, but like I spend all of my time with her. So we're like there's a symbiosis that happens when you're especially when you're training your dog, right? Where they feed off your energy, you feed off their energy. It's a huge part of training them is learning how to
Yeah,
feed them the right energy, right?
yeah,
And like I think her reaction to that was so shocking to me, or it was at least it was a positive indication that whatever I was seeing was I had reason to fear,
yeah,
right?
and you knew it was
Because
actually there because she
yes,
also saw it.
yes, absolutely. And I mean, because like I said before, she runs headlong, she runs straight up to dogs that I wouldn't go toward, you know. One of
Yeah,
my neighbors has like a 75-pound pit bull that like that looks like I don't know. It's every movie you've ever seen that has dog fighting in it, it looks like that dog. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it you can see like scars on it from fighting and like it's a scary dog.
yeah,
And you can see it I every day I watch my neighbor like fighting against the dog to try to walk it.
yeah,
It's like
the dog's
dragging her.
walking the
Yeah,
neighbor, yeah.
exactly. And my dog will just like, "I wanna go see him." And I'm like, "No, no." So, her reacting to this thing that way, it was I've only ever had her react that way to something one other time, and it was a person, which made me very uneasy. Like,
Yeah,
we were sitting on a bench, and it was I don't know, it was a kid, maybe 19, 20 years old, and he was like, "Hey, can I pet your dog?" And I was like, "Sure." And apparently my intuition isn't as strong as hers. As soon as he started walking toward that bench, she was, like, behind the bench. Like no. She wanted
yeah.
nothing to do with him. And I was like, "Well, she's not into getting petted right now, so I guess not." And he's like, "Oh, that's okay." But,
Did you
like
keep your eye on him after that?
yes.
Yeah,
Yes. 'Cause I'm
yeah,
like, I don't know, maybe he, like, goes home and makes lampshades out of, like, neighbor pets or
yeah,
something. I don't know what's going on with that guy, but something's
yeah,
wrong with him for her to react that way.
yeah,
Like yeah. So, I don't know, I trust her intuition for sure. I think dogs definitely have that
yeah.
ability to
I mean,
smell bad intentions.
I told my fiance that when I first introduced her to my dog my dog Jinx that I had in California, I said, well, to be honest, if she didn't like you, we wouldn't have been
Yeah,
we wouldn't be where we are now."
I get that for sure. I
Yeah, I
had
was like, "Thankfully, she loved you." So,
yeah. I had a um I had a pair of Great Danes with my parents when I first met my wife. And like one of the things I loved about her was that she like jumped right in and she'd play with them and walk them and she wasn't afraid of them being, huge dogs and,
yeah,
like they got along. That was a huge selling point for me when we first started dating. So I totally understand. Like,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
good judges of character.
absolutely. Better than
Yeah.
I am, apparently.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, at least you had the same you both had the same reaction to whatever the
yeah,
thing was.
yeah, absolutely.
Uh, so then now recently, how long ago did this before we move into the
Yep.
to the UFO sighting, how long ago did this shadow,
Thing.
yeah, thing,
Uh,
I didn't know what to describe it as.
yeah, I don't that's the one thing, see, I stories get better with time, right?
Yeah.
And I gotta figure out what to call this damn thing for, for future storytelling. I don't know what it was. I like I need to come up with a way of describing it that makes people like picture something. You know what I mean? It's a shadow something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because the entity just makes it sound like
Vague.
ambiguous in a sense,
Yeah.
and I was like, a creature maybe because it does transform, but it was like, really, you
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. I have no idea. Um that was the first week of December of last year.
Okay.
Um yeah, cuz my dad passed on the 27th of November and it was the first week after. It was like toward the end of the next week. So probably like December 4th or 5th, somewhere
Do
in
you think
there.
do you think in some way it could have been like a manifestation of like things you were feeling in
Yes.
that moment? Yeah.
Yeah. I've definitely considered that. I I'm a big fan of the idea of co-creation with
Mhm.
in the paranormal, that it's that these experiences are sort of an intermingling between our psyche and the other, whatever the other is,
Yeah.
right? Um so yeah, I do. I think, and that's why whenever I tell someone this, like this story, I always include the fact that, my dad had just died. I was in this dark place emotionally. Um, I think that had a lot to do with it. I do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I understand that. I think that's how, because I had a similar thing of when, like, it wasn't even that long after my dad had passed, but I was young. I was really little. And I just remember in that moment just saying, just calling out to anything. Like, if I can just see my dad one more time, that'd be awesome.
yeah,
And and then that's when I started seeing shadow figures, and it would be like these scary instances that happened, and it's because I put that call out and put my emotions out into
yeah,
the ether of whatever that other
yeah.
side is.
That like desperation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I know. I remember when you were on for a fireside chat, you mentioned that the first time you had, you saw something after that, your first thought was like, "Oh, cool, it's my dad,"
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then it got scary,
yeah.
right?
Then it got scary.
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
that's not him. That's not him.
yeah,
He's not singing Grease right now, so it
right.
can't be."
Awesome. Uh, yeah, so that was the first week of December of last year.
Okay.
Um, and then it's been pretty chill since then. And then last night would have been, it was, I think it was like 11 p.m., February 28th. Yeah, February 28th. It was like 11 p.m. I went outside, again, walking my dog. Um, that's pretty much all I do. So, um, but it gets me out at night a lot, and I get to,
Mhm.
stare at the sky, which this we turned a corner that we turn every single night and every day. Like, this is a sight that I see over and over again. And there are two offset lights in the sky. Just like one is a little to the right of the other one's a little above. Um and I know this place, and I live in rural Indiana. There's nothing this tall. It's not as high as a plane would fly, but it's
Uh-huh.
much taller than any structure near me. There are no cell towers in that direction. There there's no, I mean, these 2 lights were hovering in open air, and they were just stationary. They weren't zipping around, they weren't moving, they were just there. And I it's funny because again with a dog reaction because I spend a lot of time training her. She's
Yeah,
extremely good on the leash, right? And so I see the lights and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" Like, I thought about it for a minute and I'm like, "Yeah, there's definitely nothing there. Like, there's no structure there." So, and the next thought I had was like, I'm constantly on our show making fun of people who have experiences and don't even attempt to take a picture or a
yeah,
video, right? Like, we all struggle with that. Like, all of us. All of us who look into these and research these topics and stuff, we all wish that people would take more pictures, take more videos, like do it more.
yeah.
So,
Like, you had all that time to think of all
yeah.
the details that you're telling in the story, but you didn't pull out the phone. And
Right.
then when you have it,
Exactly.
you're like, "I didn't pull out the phone. I didn't
Yeah.
pull out the phone."
This time I did. So, I thought that and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take a video of this." So, I pull up my phone and I start taking a video of it, and my dog starts freaking out, like, not afraid. She gets, like, frantic. She starts, like, pulling me all over the place. Like, the first minute and a half of the video was unusable. Like, she's like even in the, 3 or so minutes that I ended up, like, posting to ask people, "What the hell is this?"
Mm.
Um, she at one point, she, like, spins me around in a circle. Like, it's so weird for her. But I zoomed, like I zoomed in on it, and each light was kind of, like, comprised of rings of light,
So,
and
like a
you
ring
can
within a ring?
yeah,
Okay.
like, so it's floating there, and there's, like, an outer ring, and then a smaller, and a smaller, and a smaller ring, and I don't know if that was an effect of the camera lens on the light. I don't It's not something I'm aware of if it is, um, but it was very strange. It was to just be, like, standing there looking at lights that I know aren't attached to anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so I film it for probably 5 minutes, um, and then it's super cold, and I was expecting a quick walk, so I was just wearing a light jacket. I was just like, "Nah, I gotta go in." Like, these things aren't moving, they're
Yeah.
just stationary, they're standing there, and I didn't have any, like, conscious contact type experience or anything where, like, I could feel something watching me as I was watching it, or it was nothing like that, it was just lights in the sky,
You
right?
didn't look with binoculars
I don't
like Barney Hill.
No. No, none of that. I didn't get to see any UFOs walking around in Nazi uniforms
Yeah.
inside, or yeah, I didn't get any of that. Um, but I I turned the video off because I was planning on going inside because it was cold, and then I stood there and looked at the lights for another 10 minutes. Like, just just stood there and looked at it. Um, and then I went inside, and I got up to get my kids up for school at 5:30 the next morning, and before I got them up, I just went outside, and I walked around the block, and it was like the sun was starting to rise, but it was definitely still dark,
Mhm.
um, and they were gone. The lights were gone. So, I don't I don't know. After we do this interview, I'm gonna go check again, and I'll give you an update, but yeah, that's my UFO sighting.
Yeah, that one's pretty. I mean, the fact that you can see, because I don't think a camera would do that, like create a ring within a ring
Yeah.
for to show lights.
Yeah, that
I
was
don't
my
think the
thought.
camera would do it. Um, I mean, because people take pictures of lights all the time, and I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's funny that you were just like, "All right, I gotta go inside," and then it's just another
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Yeah, it was odd. It was definitely I'm not sure why I stood there and stared at him for it just kind of like you ever seen the Grand Canyon? Like, you
Yeah,
ever been there? And you know how you're just standing there looking at it and you're not really sure why it's so amazing, but it like you're like sucked in.
Yeah, you're just
You know what I mean?
fixated on
Yeah.
like a natural beauty or
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah, or like
yeah,
after a hike you get to the top and that like that view, it just like
yeah.
holds you, you know? It kind of felt like that because I'm not really sure why I like gave a shit about a couple lights in the sky,
I think
right?
probably because it was also new. I mean, you said you've gone through that area multiple
Yeah.
times. It's a normal occurrence for you,
Yep.
and now there's something new there
Yeah.
in the sky that you haven't seen before, and you're like, "Well, what is it? Like,
Yeah.
this is awesome, but what is it?"
Yep. Yeah, it was very strange. It was a weird situation.
Yeah, and you weren't abducted. You
I
didn't
was
wake up.
not.
I
I
was
don't
like,
think
he
s
if he goes into saying he woke up the next morning and there was like a hard piece behind his
no,
ear or something like that.
no. I always have trouble buying those implant stories.
Oh
Man.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it would have been kinda cool to, like to say I went out at 11 to see him, and then
Mhm.
I walked back, 15, 20 minutes later, and my wife was like, "Where you been? You've been gone for 8 hours." Like, that would be a way cooler story, but that didn't happen.
I think that would be, I don't know if it would be cool you think it now. I think it would break my
Yeah.
mind if that happened. I was like, "Wait, what? I've been gone for how many hours?"
Yeah. Yeah, those missing time stories freak me out. They're like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's odd.
Yeah, I remember
I
anytime I tell my UFO stories, people are like, "Okay, you don't have any missing time
yeah.
with your stories." I'm like, "No, they just happened." I wouldn't want I don't even I don't even wanna think about being abducted by anything.
Yeah. I think I asked you that when you told them on my show.
Oh, did
Like
you? Yeah.
yeah, because you had the one where it, like, zoomed right toward your car, right, as you were
Yeah,
driving,
yeah,
and your jerk brother fell asleep when he was
yeah.
supposed to be keeping you up, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and and missing time stories happen a lot when people are driving. It happens all the time with those stories where they're like, "Well, it takes me 30 minutes to drive from here to here, but I got there, like, 2 hours late," and I don't know why. That's so
yeah,
common.
that is I don't know if you had asked me if I'd gone there later or earlier, maybe it was a different show, but I know somebody asked that, and I was like, "No, I got there on time." And then after when I say it, I go, "Did I? It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Did I get there on time?"
I think you told me you actually got there a little early because you were so freaked out
Oh,
that
yeah,
you
yeah, I
drove a
drove
little
faster.
faster.
Yeah, I drove a
Yeah.
little faster. I just wanted to get home.
Yep.
Uh,
That makes a lot of sense.
but yeah, that's crazy. I wonder if I mean, if you do see it again, you have to let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. I I forgot also, as I was walking down the block to get a little closer to it in the video, you can see them kind of, like, blinking in the video. Like, I didn't even notice it when I was doing it because I was looking more in front of
Mm,
me than at the video, but in the video, you can see the lights kind of like they blink, like but then once I stop moving, they're they're solid again.
hmm.
I don't it's weird. I'm still processing this one for
I
sure.
have to go through and watch it because as soon as he started, started. I was like, "Wait, he's gonna be on the show. Why am I gonna listen to his experience now?"
Yeah.
I was like, "I'll just have him tell me it." So I didn't know that you had a video of it
Yeah,
and things
definitely
like
go
that.
watch it. Yeah, it's a weird one. It definitely is, and you can see the rings and everything in the video, so, yeah.
Yeah. So you've had the trifecta,
Yep,
even though you don't know what that second thing was.
that's
It's
true.
defined right now as an unknown creature,
Yeah,
which falls under cryptid. So
for sure. All I know is it started out as a dog,
yeah,
so I'm going with cryptid for now. I don't even know what the hell cryptid means anymore. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, most of them I think are probably folklore creatures, and, like, the other half are probably interdimensional beings, and, like but I think cryptid just, like, means a paranormal thing that's also cool to put on a T-shirt.
yeah.
I think that's what cryptid means.
A T-shirt, bumper sticker, or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Like a paranormal entity that makes good merch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Turn that one into it. Gotta come up with when you come up with a name for it,
yeah.
and
I mean, it's weird. It like you could say like shapeshifter.
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I don't have any idea what it was.
yeah. There's
All I
I bet you if you were to like put that on like TikTok and put like a call out to anybody see it, it would just be like Skinwalker, Skinwalker. Everybody
yeah,
just Skinwalker.
yeah. And that's like that freaks me out. That's not even a word I like saying.
Yeah.
Like, man, I don't know. I don't know if like I don't know any shamans in Indiana, but
Mhm.
who am I to say?
Well, hopefully it was just a shadow
Yeah,
person.
yeah. I'm hoping it was
Yeah,
more ethereal than physical, and it isn't
yeah,
something that hangs out 3 or 4 blocks from my house.
yeah. No, that would be insanely scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do appreciate you sharing those because I mean each one of them is like awesome in their own way.
Yeah,
From
thank you.
like from like the simple pushing of a door to this unknown creature to like weird lights in the sky.
Yeah,
You came on the show with it all, man. You came
yeah.
on the show with it all.
I guess I did. Dude, I like talking about it. You know, I spent like the first year of the show interviewing people about their experiences, and I would go on other people's shows and they're like, "Have you ever had an experience?" And I'm like, "Well, I wish I had something cool to talk about." And then it just started happening. So, I like sharing them.
Yeah,
Um
if you want more, I can send you a haunted object or something, you
yeah,
know?
that honestly that'd be awesome. Just like I would wait until I think my wife wants me to wait until all of our kids are moved out
Yeah.
before I start getting into that stuff. So,
Yeah, my fiance doesn't even like it.
yeah,
So
I bet. I bet.
yeah.
My wife is really weird and sensitive about the stuff. Like when the thing happened in with the door, with the bathroom door, after it shut, she was just like, "Nope. Nope. Mm-mm." She didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want to like she's very like it freaks her out for sure.
Oh, no, no, my fiance would talk about it. I get messages all day like, "I heard a noise, there's a ghost in here." There's ghosts, and I have to be the one that's like, "It's not a ghost. It's
Yeah.
the neighbor next door."
See, when I say like I when something like when there's some noise in another room and I'm like, "Did you hear the ghost?" My wife's like, "Shut up. It's not a ghost.
And
Stop it." So
it's our
I think
job just to bother more.
yeah, it's a long-term project of mine to figure out what happened to her. Like because the way she regards it, like the way she
Mhm.
talks about this stuff, or rather doesn't talk about this stuff, I know she has experiences
Yeah,
that like something scared the shit out of her at some point, and she just like now it all terrifies her.
yeah.
So like it's a long term project to figure out what happened. And I want to
You're
hear
just
the
chipping
story
away
so bad.
slowly.
Yes, yes. I'm one day that's gonna make one hell of a fireside chat. Let me
Yeah,
tell you.
that'd
Yeah.
be awesome. You're like, "Finally, it's happening."
Yep. Yeah.
Well, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you, all the social
Yeah.
stuff.
Absolutely. Um, you can find Campfire Tales of the Strange and Unsettling on any and all podcast platforms. Wherever you're listening to this, you can find us. Um, you can go to campfirepodcastnetwork.com to get everything. Um, but, you can find us on Insta, on Facebook, on Twitter, on TikTok, all of them. We're all over the place. So, campfire.podcast. Except for Instagram is campfire.tales.podcast, much to my chagrin. Um, but yeah, come hang out, come talk, check out the show. We put out a ton of content, so Yeah,
Yeah,
we'd love to have
I
you.
mean, when I was on your show, I emphasized that you put in a lot of work.
Absolutely.
Like you have your Patreon
Mhm.
and all that, and I
Yeah,
would recommend like just go and check out all the work this guy does. He puts in a lot of work.
thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm glad you reminded me because also patreon.com/campfire tales of the strange and unsettling. And it will take you longer to type the URL than it will to choose what tier you want to support us at. But you can do it. I believe in you. Um, yeah, between the main show and the Patreon, we're putting out like somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 hours of content every week.
Ooh,
So yeah, that's plus, written short because a lot of our stuff we write,
yeah,
right? Because one of our Patreon shows is called Lights Out, and it's all short fiction written by Ryan and I, and read with full sound design and all that. So we write, you know, anywhere from 4 to 8 short horror stories a week between the two of us.
dope.
Plus our main episode, we write, that first 15 to 20 minutes is a campfire story inspired by a real life experience of someone. So yeah, a lot of writing. We compose all of our own music. So
Nice.
yeah, it's a ton. So everyone
Yeah,
should come and check it out for sure.
yeah, it's a whole other job for them. So go
Oh
and
yeah,
support.
absolutely. It is. I mean, yeah, I easily put 30 to 40 hours a week into the show. Um, this was awesome, dude. It's a lot of
Well, I
fun.
appreciate you coming on. Yeah, I try to keep it loose and fun. Uh,
Yeah.
but everybody listening, watching on YouTube, whatever, subscribe, comment if you've had any similar experiences to Jordan here. I bet you that would be awesome to have other people who
Yeah.
have had the same type of experiences. Hit the stupid little bell on YouTube so you can be notified when everything drops. And don't forget to ask questions and face your fears. Thanks for joining me and Jordan on this episode of Induced Fear. Bye, everybody.
See ya.